Howdy folks, welcome to the Beginner's Guide. I don't have a whole lot of background on this game. It came highly recommended to me by a close personal friend, and I don't have the slightest clue of what I'm getting myself into. Hopefully the audio balancing levels are fine. I haven't even hit begin the game yet. I'm just guessing, so... Let's see what this is all about. I think this is by the same developer as the Stanley Parable. Pretty sure. I'll have to check that after I record this first episode. And if so, I have respect for that developer. Let's go ahead and begin the game. Okay. Sure. Alright. Yeah, that's pretty standard.
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing the Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Reedon. I wrote the Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011.
Okay.
We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way. And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator.
Sure.
I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is.
Yeah.
And
okay.
That's exactly what we're going to do here.
Okay.
So, it's 2008, Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any of them. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever.
I had a friend
and
like that.
And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, you know, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made, until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveywreden@gmail.com. Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
All right. I'm listening. I'm going to take a moment here. I think we're going to take a few moments here. This developer or this narrator may be talking through the majority of the game, so I may need to take breaks to sort of discuss things with you. I can definitely relate to what he's talking about here. The feeling the developers through the work as such an avid gamer, it's something that I've sort of, grown a sense for. It's something a lot of us have grown a sense for, whether or not the developers loved their game. People refer to it as whether the game has soul, whether it has meaning. Even if it's just, I don't know, a shooter or an arcade type game, you can almost tell when a developer puts this fine detail in, when there's Easter eggs that the player isn't even intended to ever find. But I had a friend who used to make these amazing tracks, like EDM and, like mostly like techno and electronic and stuff. I really respected this guy, and he had hundreds on his computer, and he did not release them. He never released them, and he died a few years back, and so far as I know, his works died with him. Not sure if that's the kind of punch in the gut this game is going to give me later on. Let's find out. The game is very sensitive. Hang on. That is driving me nuts. Calm down. Okay, that's a little... Oh boy. Okay. I don't want it.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
If you say so. Doesn't look too generic to me.
You can click to fire the gun.
Thanks. Daga.
Security code breached.
I can't reload, it's an infinite gun. Lovely.
It kinda looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For
Shit.
instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are
I'm out of ammunition.
monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets.
I sure can't.
But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Okay.
Enemy force neutralized. Begin ship evacuation.
Enemy force neutralized.
I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
Oh shit. Cool. Alright. Aha! I found the way.
Apparently
this
the
is a
space
maze.
station has a labyrinth on it.
Why?
Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past it.
Thank you. That's generous of you.
Okay, this is the part that's interesting. The
All
game
right.
has this narrative about the Whisper Machine and how it has
Yeah,
to be
what the
turned
fuck is
off,
that?
and then you get to the engine room.
Okay. Alright.
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That beam is powering the Whisper Machine. We could
Okay.
disrupt it by introducing a great enough heat signature.
Okay.
Your body could stop the beam. It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it?
Oh, commit
Would you give
suicide.
yourself?
Sure. Whee!
Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level.
Okay.
But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
Alright. I'm listening. What? Oh, cool.
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies something human about it, like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs.
Okay.
So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
So we're talking about subversive games, games that, subvert the concept of gaming, which is what the Stanley Parable is. Are we sure Coda isn't this developer? Don't tell me in the comments, by the way. I'm gonna try to do this in one session. Okay. Oh.
Yep. In this game, you can only walk backwards.
Funny. Very funny. I've tried to run through levels as a kid backwards, just to see if I could. The music is backwards. Neat. Oh, shit.
So it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete.
Yeah.
Coda's trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
Okay. I keep backing up. Is it? Did I do it wrong? Wait, that's new. Very neat. Oh. This is really cool. So I'm gonna get a bunch of little bite-sized subversive games, that's very cool. How will she find the strength to confront it?
It's a short little thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that.
Okay.
Which to me is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay, next one.
Maybe, maybe not. It's a topic for debate for sure. Alright, can't see anything, and I'm guessing, yep, as I move forward, the world will create and destruct behind me. Got a horror game vibe, my feet crunching the gravel.
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting.
Sure. I'm here for the ride.
Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games.
Sure.
I wish I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games. He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it.
Okay.
Once he stopped work on a game, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do?
Well, I get the idea of flitting from project to project. I will never reach the top of the staircase.
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
Okay. Interesting. Selling your organs strategically to make the most money before you die.
A room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games.
Huh. Press U to surrender. Can't. Oh, this
Coda
is
would
the idea.
often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
That's almost... that's practically been done in a few games now. That idea right there. Ready, set, fish. I hear water. Getting some Halo flashbacks from these columns. Efficient, utilitarian.
Well, this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it.
Okay. An actual puzzle, you say? I'm not, I'm not seeing whatever I'm supposed to see. If indeed there is anything to see. Can I walk around the door? No? I'm probably overanalyzing right now. As is my birthright. Oh, duh. What?
Don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon. We're gonna see it a lot.
I'll forget it if I want. You can't stop me. Okay.
So that seems to be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve a puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again, so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
Okay. What?
How about that? There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the Stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the Stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior. And then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then
Wow.
what is it?
Okay. I'm now exiting.
Aha. So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the Stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game.
Sure.
There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them.
Okay.
And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
Okay. I'm sort of reserving my thoughts here since the narrator is making his point. Right? Why does that seem ominous to me? Is that just me? There's something vaguely unsettling about that. I suppose let's walk towards it.
Let's talk about video game development for a second. Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development.
Sure.
To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source.
Right.
Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well.
Sure.
The tools available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making.
That's
you might
true.
consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games, to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
This is certainly something. I'm not sure what to make of this. As I said, there's something almost unsettling. I feel like I'm not talking as much as I normally do, and that's partially because the narrator is doing a lot of the talking for me, but also because I don't have a prepared response for this. The game has my tongue. I'm used to having a response for just about everything, but I'm sort of at a loss for some reason. And I could not tell you why exactly. Huh. Okay. What was that? I don't know, there's something... One of the integral parts of gaming is interaction, how you interact with the world, and this sort of interaction is so far from the norm, I'm not sure what to think about it. My brain is still attempting to catch up with it. These are like horse stalls. Yes? What are the noises? I'm actually breaking out in a bit of a cold sweat. Okay, why? Okay. What's happening? Anxiety.
This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't have anything against art games.
This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't.
I love it. I love it. It's such a dry, sarcastic, jaded, sardonic sense of humor. Playable games. Well, the meaning of gaming is changing, you know? Some games are almost movies that you just sort of sit through. The interactivity is almost limited. There's no, there isn't challenge. This is a game. Or is it art? Or is it a game? Yada, yada, yada. And so on and so on.
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time. There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly.
Okay. See, I can tell you though, even though these assets are so old and outdated seeming, there is a singular, unique sort of design. No other person could produce exactly this. I don't think. Sure, it's a little reminiscent of other games.
Here, Coda begins using a kind of dialogue system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the 1, 2, 3 buttons on your keyboard to respond.
Okay. Yes. Interesting choices. I'll just go with it. Yes, I did. You don't want to go over there. I don't trust them. I don't trust you. Why? Must be an ending. Wonder what's on the books. Okay. As I said, I'm quite unsettled. Is this the same room from another angle? Is this gonna repeat? Nope, I've been here forever. Who are you? Oh, great. It'll grow on me. Also ominous.
And so we make one last descent down to the final floor of the level.
Okay.
It's a lamppost.
Okay.
Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason, Coda fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, you know, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination.
Sure.
Which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're going to see it in the work as well. His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
Well, it's a compromise, right? It's a compromise between having to actually have an end to the game. I mean, this seems like a clear point, right? That he just made there. It was, you know, oh, but there has to be an ending. That's the ending. It's not an actual game over the end screen. It's that's your destination, sure. It makes sense in a twisted sort of way. Is it? Are they? Okay.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but this game is not connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're gonna see have been written by Coda.
Yeah.
This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually.
Note that he starts with an insult. I think that's interesting. I think the greatest critique, the greatest critic of an artist's work is, of course, the artist. What do you think? First comment, first thing that popped into his head. Self-criticism, right? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe these are comments that he's heard. Hello, world. Reasonable.
Feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played.
Do you feel like a hero
But it's
yet?
ironic, isn't it? That in playing this game and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me. That I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing. I could just get to know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less
What else
lonely
is a
too.
game? What else is a game? It's another form of art. Alright, I'm over 30 minutes here. Let me break the video, and I'll start recording again right after. See you there.